In this episode, we are going to share with you how to reinvent yourself, and we're going to share our stories with you for inspiration. So it is your boss bitch bestie and the queen of sparkle and sunshine myths, Coach Glitter over here. And if you're new here, I'm Diane Flores. My mission is to help women become the best version of themselves through owning their power in fitness, diet, life, just overall boss bitchery. And Amanda.
What's up, guys? I'm Coach Glitter and living proof that if I can do it, so can you.
Before we share with you how to reinvent yourself, we would love to be a part of your reinvention. So we are running the Goddess Body Project again here very, very soon. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it is an online and an in-person, if you're local to Modesto, coaching program. And it includes nutrition, workouts, live coaching calls. We get you to your goal destination. And this is for you if you don't feel good in your clothes, which is something we hear often because maybe you've gained some weight. If you want to be strong and healthy as you get older, and you want to feel good about yourself and stop feeling self-conscious or insecure. And we do that through revamping your lifestyle with diet, nutrition, exercise, and a crew of like really inspiring badass coaches and fellow Goddess Body Project attendees.
That's right. Today's episode on Boss Bitch Radio is for women who may be ready for a big life shift.
We are going to be talking about how we reinvented our identities and how you can do this as well.
How do you know if you are ready for reinvention?
Well, there are several key things that might clue you in. It's a good opportunity to take the leap. Number one is going to be maybe you're itching for personal growth. You know, as humans, we evolve and we mature and our interests change. So that's one thing.
Number two, life transitions. Maybe you're getting married. Maybe you got a divorce. Maybe it's for the best. Okay. Maybe you just had a baby and you're trying to figure out your life after being a mom. Maybe you're moving to a new city, a new town.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Or number three, maybe you're overcoming some kind of recent adversity, right? Maybe you had an illness in your life. We see this often where people, they get sick or they're diagnosed with something and they're like, they want to just reinvent themselves, right?
Maybe you're the person taking care of somebody.
Right. And that could also be it too. Or maybe you lost somebody important in your life, or maybe you had some kind of failure that happened and you're ready to like hit the reset button.
Yeah. You're in a period of recovery and healing after things like that. Trauma could be a thing that's going to change your life. Difficult experiences. These are all things that are going to, maybe need a revamp.
And then there's things that are super easy in terms of a no-brainer where you're just seeking fulfillment. Maybe you're just kind of in this like lackluster space. Something needs to change and it's time to explore new interests, new passions, new hobbies, a new way of being, really. Or maybe you've done some self-reflection, which kind of ties in with the last one where maybe you're journaling and you have some introspection time and you're feeling pulled to make a change. I know this happens to me often.
Yeah.
So if you resonate with that, sometimes, like it's time for a little reinvention, and it doesn't have to be a like total overhaul, and we'll go into that. But a lot of these things factor into when people are like, this is a good time.
Yeah, it can totally be a variety of internal and external things that you're like, I don't know, maybe I feel like I need something new.
Right. And I've always been a firm believer that your identity creates your reality.
Wow,
I know.
That's deep.
I
feel
know.
like you should have waited for the last one on that.
I know. It's true though.
You can't reinvent yourself without shifting something about your identity or about what you are and who you're doing.
Correct.
Who you're doing.
Well, maybe who you're doing.
Maybe who
it
you're
could
doing.
be who
Actually,
you're doing.
That's probably
it. Are you doing the wrong dudes? It's time to, I revamped my identity. Okay. You can too. So before we dive in, you must understand some really important things. You will never go further than the limits of your own identity.
Yeah.
So true, down to the depths of your core.
Okay. So what does this mean though?
Basically, you will never change your life if you don't change the person that you see yourself as. Right. So like if I always saw myself as the broke teen mom that was overweight and, sick and all these things, could I transform myself into an IFBB pro in that identity? Like,
No.
if I carry that around, right?
Right.
I couldn't.
It determines how successful you are. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And your relationships and also your limits.
Your identity shapes your reality. And I feel that like deep in my soul.
I know. I can't wait to dive into that.
I know.
It's going to be so much fun.
I know.
And I think while you and I probably didn't have the awareness that that's what we were doing when we shifted our identities, I'd say in retrospect that 100% this is a fact. Like, we had to evolve who we thought we were into a new person.
I can't keep doing the same things.
Yeah.
If I want to be different, right?
Yes.
That's easy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to talk about 2 ways to shift your identity. So option number 1, which is the most popular way. Okay. I hear this all the time. You're going to force yourself to start new habits and stick to them. And then eventually you kind of become that person because you made yourself do all those things. However, but sometimes that doesn't always work. Okay. So as for me, I actually did kind of take this side of the road, right? I found myself overweight and I was like, okay, I need to do something. And I just went on it. I started being the person that went to the gym and I made that my daily thing. And then as I started to see myself feeling better, getting fitter, losing weight, I was like, I want to fucking do this shit like for everybody else too, because I felt so good. So now they're just regular habits for me.
Right. Now, when it comes to this option, as far as when you shift your identity, I would say that this is probably how most people start.
Yeah.
Right. This is how I started too.
Rip the Band-Aid.
You rip the Band-Aid.
Yeah.
You sign up for a transformation program. Yeah. Hint, hint.
Okay.
You sign up for a transformation program. Maybe you hire a personal trainer. It could be somebody who even maybe starts the gym.
Well, I mean, that's what I did. I hired a personal trainer.
Yes.
And that started the ball rolling.
Right. So I think option 1 is how a lot of people start to transform their identity. Now, the other way that people change their identity, and I would say that this is something that I do more now, and you probably do too, as we set new goals and do new things, is that we start to shift our identity first.
Yeah.
And then the habits that are necessary for that identity start to fall in place. Okay. So an example of this, and I know I refer often to the Atomic Habits book, but James Clear, the author, says, I want you to think of it this way. So if you are a smoker and I offer you a cigarette when you're trying to quit, instead of you saying, no, I'm trying not to smoke, when you're trying to change your identity, you say, I'm not a smoker.
Right.
Okay. So
because then they won't ask.
Right.
They're going to leave you alone. And then you're just like, okay.
Right. So do you see the difference in that? Like, it's
So much.
It's so different. Like, I'm trying not to smoke. And I think this could go for so many things we see our clients struggle with.
Yeah, I know. I feel that. I mean, it's even with like drinking or,
Snacks.
Yeah. You know what I do know, and I need to go back to that. I used to always say I didn't like chocolate cake.
Oh,
Bitch, I like chocolate cake.
Oh.
Okay. But I didn't know.
you
For
didn't.
the
You were really like a big fan of chocolate.
No, it's not my favorite. It's still not my favorite.
Mhm.
It's still not my favorite. But I just used to say, oh, I don't like chocolate cake. So I never ate chocolate cake.
Yeah,
I was missing out.
you were missing out.
However-
So now you just need to say, I'm not a cake eater.
Yeah. I don't eat cake.
I don't eat cake.
I don't eat cookies.
There you go. So you can see how like one phrase is kind of like fighting your identity. Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying not to eat cake, or I'm trying.
Embody it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea is that your behaviors will fall in line with the new identity. So changing your life starts with an identity shift. And you can do this by diving into the habits that would be associated with your new identity.
Option 1.
Option 1. Or you can start to embody that identity. And then as you're faced with certain circumstances or choices and things like that, then you speak from that identity.
Yeah.
How weird is that? But it's a thing.
It works.
Yeah.
It's kind of along the lines of affirmations.
Yes.
I mean, it's the same thing.
Right.
You're like, this is who I am. This is just who I am, whether you are yet or not. If you keep acting like it, eventually you're going to be that person.
All right. So we're going to saunter in to the next segment, which is we're not diving, we're sauntering. Okay.
I like it.
All right. Let's talk about 3 key steps to changing your identity. And these are so good. So you got to listen.
I feel like this goes for everybody, right? Because as you said in the beginning, we are always evolving.
Yes.
And so everybody should be listening to this right now.
Everybody, perk up your ears. Okay. So you need to decide who that new version of you is, and you have to get crystal motherfucking clear. Okay. Yes. You cannot be like, I kind of just want to be a fit girl.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you? And this ties me back into the goal setting workshop we did at the beginning of the year, where I really drilled this down to get people to be really clear about what it is that they wanted, you know, what goals they had to set. And it's the same thing when you're setting a new version of yourself. This is a goal. Like, this is what you're aspiring
to. You gotta be specific.
You have to be very specific. So you need to think of things like, who is she? What is her life like? How does she feel? How does, you know, how does she move in the world? What does she believe in? How does she act when she's presented with certain circumstances? What does she say and how does she behave? Right. And a great example that you and I both can relate to is when we became competitors from our fit girl life to competitors, we had to act like competitors. Mm-hmm. And so that identity was something we had to take on. So you have to get very detailed with who you want to become and start to shapeshift by taking every sort of experience and potential habit that you have into consideration and ask yourself if that is contributing to who you want to become.
Right. Oh my gosh, that you're getting deep today.
I'm getting deep. I was like, hey, we're going to talk about our stories today.
I know. And I was all ready for it, but
I know.
Is getting deep. Okay. So second step into changing your identity is you have to kill the old you. Okay.
Do that again. Say it again.
You have to kill the old you. Okay. Yes. Fifi had to die.
Fifi had to die.
If you know me, if you've known me for a long time, you know what Fifi is. Okay. She had to die. All right. It's very dramatic. I understand, but you have to let that part of you that is not serving you to this new identity, it's got to go.
Yes.
It has to go. So if you're trying to become that person, like, I can't be Fifi and if I want to be that, if I want to be glitter.
Right. And so let's just give them a couple examples of who Fifi was because not everybody knows Fifi.
I know. Okay. So Fifi is my alter ego. Okay, let's start there. She's wild, crazy, mouthy, grumpy, and sassy.
Yeah.
And she did not serve me in my glitter days. Okay. So she didn't work out. She ate bad. I would drive 2 blocks down the road to go to the grocery store or the corner store. She just was not serving.
Yeah. So you have to let go of that, right? Yeah. Like if we, and I'm just going back to this because it's such an extreme example, but when you want to create a new identity, something like competing is a new identity, right? And for some of you listening, it might be, I'm just trying to be like healthy and fit and get consistent. And so you have to identify as somebody who does those things, right? So for us, it's like, she couldn't be acting like Fifi and then trying to be a competitor. Like those two things aren't in alignment.
Let me be real. I couldn't act like Fifi and be healthy.
Yes.
Let's be real. That's completely like 100%.
So something that just came to me, like, as we're talking about this, it's like, I know we have a lot of clients that are social on the weekends and they party it up and all that stuff. And I think that's important. I think socialization is huge and obviously enjoying your life and lifestyle. And we teach people how to do that, right?
Yes.
Like responsibly.
Yes.
Responsibly. But it's like, if you were always like the party girl in high school or, you know, or you were like the socialite or the this or the that, and that's became your identity, right? You're the girl that parties Friday through Sunday and this and that. And if you're still carrying that through in your adult life, but you don't want that identity anymore. You're like, okay, that was fun in my 20s, but like I'm in my 40s. I can't be drinking a bottle of wine Friday night and Saturday night and then mimosas and brunch on Sunday and then try to be a human that is suitable for consumption on like Monday morning and like be responsible, right?
Well,
and then
I mean, as 40-year-olds, I'm almost 40. Okay. As that,
so
like
weird.
we have shit to do.
Yeah.
Like I can't be trying to party on the nighttime and then worky on the daytime.
Right. And Taco Tuesdays and Wine Down Wednesday.
Margarita Monday.
Right. Like there's an alcohol
Thursday.
Fuck it up Friday.
Friday.
So you have to start letting go of the old identity that you carried that's not serving you for the new one.
Yeah.
And also any old stories you have around that, negative beliefs you have around that. All of that has to start to fall to the wayside.
I never envisioned myself as somebody that was healthy, that worked out. Like I never did that.
No.
Not until I was like, okay, now it's time to do it. And then that's all I envisioned,
And now you haven't stopped.
I can't stop.
How many years later?
I can't stop now.
Yeah. So, I mean, to your point, it's like when you started, like we said, you started with step number or option number one, which was like, you're just, I'm going to start doing this thing.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I'm sure because of the results you started seeing, you were like, oh, I kind of want to keep doing this thing. And then you couldn't be Fifi anymore.
No, because I needed to keep doing the thing.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. So we left her behind. She died.
She died.
It's great.
She died.
Was I sad about it? Maybe a little bit. Okay. But in reality, for myself, it has done me well to leave Fifi behind. Everybody loves glitter, and that's great.
Yes. So she had to separate like who she was then with who she wanted to become. And I think we're always still kind of doing that, right? I feel like it just sneaks up behind you.
I mean, let's talk about this. Like, okay, I was a heavy girl. Okay. And then I was just like a fit girl. And then I was like, okay, I'm a competitor. And like, okay, now we're adjusting again, right? What am I? Am I a competitor? Am I a lifestyle? Am I just a fit girl? Do I just like to have a good time? I don't know. And lift heavy shit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're in the middle of an identity crisis.
A little bit. It's fine. That's the thing. It's ever evolving. So like, I'm not afraid of it. I'm just like, we're going to figure this out. You just got to let it come.
Right. I mean, I had a huge identity crisis when I decided I didn't want to compete anymore. Are you kidding me?
I know.
Huge. And it was a struggle, but again, it's not who it's, it's kind of the reverse, and not saying like in a negative connotation, but it was like, okay, I have to deprogram a lot of my mentality that I had around competing. And I'm sure you too, right?
Totally.
Like, because
I'm still doing it right now. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. And, I mean, you're right behind me in terms of the timeline, but we had to deprogram a lot of that. And it's really challenging. And we see that with a lot of competitors.
Yeah. And, I also think, on the flip side, it's really hard for somebody that is overweight to see themselves as somebody that is this weight or healthy and fit and have the body that they want. But, all you got to do is keep doing the things. Like if you want to be in option 1, great. If you want to be in option 2, that's also going to work as well. You just got to pick one and fucking go.
Right. And so I think by the nature of this podcast, I'm making this decision for both of us, are deciding that the past is no longer relevant and it needs to be released if it's not aligning with our future selves.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we just figured out our lives right
now. Oh my God. High five.
Fuck the name. All right.
Okay. So a part of that, which isn't, something that I realized we were going to kind of unearth right now, but there is, and this is something I know you and I have probably been dealing with. I don't want to say like secretly because we talk about it, but like just like not realizing, I think, or maybe not ready to just realize it, is that there's a grief period.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
Of like leaving what's, I don't want to say even comfortable, but it's our default of who we are.
No, it just feels right. Like, I feel like that's what I should be doing, but that doesn't necessarily have to be who I am right now. I did that thing. Like I competed, I've lost over 150 pounds. Like I don't have to be that girl. I want to be the new next girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love her.
See, I just found it.
Okay. We found her.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's here.
So you have to leave that mindset behind. So we have to leave that mindset behind of like, if we're not going hard 6 days a week, we're just fucking sucking at life. Or
Right.
if we're not doing cardio 5 days a week, we're just not worthy.
Right. And that's terrible.
It is
That is
very,
absolutely terrible. If you are not a competitor and you are doing 5 cardio days a week just because you feel like that's what you're supposed to be doing, get a coach and make sure that's what you're supposed to be doing. All right. Just in
exactly.
case.
Exactly. So if you've always been a competitor or associated as being a competitor, or you've been, overweight or
Mhm.
unhappy with your body, it's no longer relevant, right?
Yeah.
When you decide to shift your identity. So you have to kill the mindset of the
So-
old bitch.
I have something to say, but I don't know if it's time to do it. Is it time?
Is it time?
You have to figure out who you want to be right now. And that's all you are.
That's all you are.
That's all you are anymore.
You can't be the old bitch.
No, we're not the old bitch.
Because we second guess ourselves all the time. So it's normal
Yeah.
to second guess yourself and feel like, am I, in the case of, transforming to lose significant amount of weight or something like that? It's like, you feel like an imposter, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not a fit girl. Why am I in this? Why am I doing personal training? Why am I signing up for this transformation program?
Yeah.
I'm not even a fit person.
No.
Right.
Right.
I mean, when I tried competing or started competing and doing all the things, I felt so dumb.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, I'm doing this posing thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I wanted to bolt out of the room.
I believe it.
Right. Because I'm like, who do I think I am trying to do this thing?
Yeah. It's a second guess game.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we've beat this down enough, but you have to leave it behind.
Yeah.
So let's talk about sort of how you shifted your identity, because you have had several, and clearly we just had another one today.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
But you've had several. So let's talk about the first, we'll use that one. Let's talk about your first identity shift. So who did you identify before you got into your fitness lifestyle?
So when I was like heavy, before I started working out, right? Before I identified, I was just the fun girl. I was the quote unquote, I hate saying this, but this is what they said. I was the fat girl, blah, blah, blah. I was just always, everybody loved me, and that was great.
Did you ever get anybody that said this to you? And I hate this, just so I can preface this right now. Did anybody ever say to you, like, or did you ever hear, because this is something that I would hear a lot, and it bothers me, like, still to this day.
I am like on the edge of my seat for you to tell me, keep going. Go.
Where people will be like, she's got a really pretty face.
Oh, I got that all the time.
But she's heavy, or she's overweight.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Like, I want to punch somebody when they say that. It just makes me so angry.
I have a love-hate relationship with this, because I've had people tell me in both ways of like, some people are trying to be nice about it, and then some people are just like, yeah, you're fat, you should probably lose weight. And the delivery is not that great. However, they weren't fucking wrong.
Well, you were in a healthy situation.
Absolutely. 100%.
Right.
I was 280 pounds, you guys, if you didn't know, 280 pounds, probably more, because I was afraid to get on the scale, and I've lost multiple times over 150 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Over the last, 10 years.
Yeah.
I lost all the weight in 1 year.
So before you started and you dove into, okay, like, I'm going to start working out, because I remember you tell that story on the podcast. You've told it a couple times, where you went to put on your favorite necklace.
Yeah.
And it was too tight. And then somebody said something to you about being the fat girl or something.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the necklace was a totally different thing. But one time I was like out, right? And that's what I did. I partied, you guys. I drank a lot.
That was Fifi.
I ate a lot. That was Fifi. Okay. Now we're getting into it. But so I went out one night, and I was dressed up, and I just feel the best thing ever, and this guy looks at me and he goes, oh, I love the fat girl. And I was like, who the fuck is he talking to? And I was like, bitch, I'm the fat girl. Which, listen, I love me a fat girl. Okay. It just was not healthy for me at that time.
Yes. Okay. So before you started, you obviously did the forced habits version, right?
Yeah.
You just kind of dove in.
I got a personal trainer, and I was just like, what the fuck do you want me to do? Okay. I see you 3 days a week. What do you want me to do the other days? Okay. In this time, I did not get nutrition at that point. Okay. It was just not necessarily because he didn't do it, or I just didn't ask him. Right. So I learned all that shit myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as far as your identity, because this is where I want it to get juicy, right? Because you were like the fat girl.
Yeah.
I'm using air quotes here.
I know. Yeah.
And you then became a fitness, like you were in fitness. Okay. So how was that transition for you, like in your brain? Like as you're like 300-pound Amanda and you're on your way to 150-pound Amanda.
Right.
Right. Like at some point, did you ever have the thought like, oh, I'm not fat anymore now. Now I'm a fit girl and I got to do fit girl things. Like, that's probably not how it presented itself in your head. But
no, I was just like laser focused. I knew I needed to lose weight. And then I started weightlifting, although it was fucking hard as fuck. I enjoyed it because it made me feel strong and it was something I can control.
yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you started getting stronger and
yeah, I'm strong as fuck, kind of, you guys.
Now, did this affect your previous relationships, like friends that you would hang out with? Because like when you're Fifi and you're partying and then you're not Fifi, your Fifi friends are probably like, excuse me, where's our party favor?
I'm going to give you a couple of like thoughts on this because in reality, it happened back then when I wanted to be like thinner and I wanted to lose weight. Now, my friends were very great and they were all on my team, right? But obviously I was pretty much completely sober for a while. And I still hung out and I was still good, but I'm obviously not the same person that they remember or was at the parties. And, even in prep, I get the same thing.
Yeah.
So, it's ever evolving and I get better with it every year, but people are always going to judge you on what phase of life you're in.
Yes.
And if you're not doing what they want you to do,
correct,
that's a problem.
Especially if they're not shifting their identity and they're staying in unhealthy behaviors, right? Misery loves company.
Like you can't go to a bar if you want to stop drinking.
Exactly. You should not be hanging out in a casino if you're trying to quit smoking or gambling, right?
Yes.
It's like it's just too easy. The access is too easy. And it's just, why put yourself in that situation? Why you're trying to make it harder, So did you struggle with that shift with your friends, like saying shit? Cause I'm sure like you had to say no to a lot of partying.
Oh yeah. I said like, okay, keep this in mind. Like I would party Thursday to Sunday and, so that was the thing. And, I just was like, I'm not going to do it as much. And then I started learning about nutrition even more, like very early on. And I was like, yep, this is probably not going to work for me, and I lost 90 pounds in 9 months.
Did you ever like miss it?
Partying?
Yeah. I mean, did you ever want to quit your healthy life? I mean,
not because of it.
Okay.
No, I felt amazing. I was starting to look amazing. Like, it wasn't worth it to me to continue to drink and party like that if I was going to continue to feel the way that I felt.
Yeah.
100%.
Right.
Like I remember, when I was starting to do cardio and stuff, I started on the elliptical, because I was a big girl. That's all I knew. And then I started to walk a little bit more on an incline. And then I started to jog and my knees, they wrecked me like so bad. And what I knew is that as I kept going, it went away because the weight kept coming down.
I know that is the the double-edged sword when it comes to high impact activities. When you're starting those, just as a side note, and you're overweight, it's usually not the best idea. That's why I'm like, if you are, overweight, you should not be doing a boot camp where there's a lot of jumping and running or a CrossFit or something like that. Like that might be something you work up to, but I don't think that's where people should be starting.
The only way that I would say to start that is if you have a really great coach that will modify anything for you.
Right.
That is the only way that I would
hard
I know.
In a group setting. I mean, we used to run boot camps with sometimes 18, 20.
I feel like I could do it with 2 coaches, but 1 coach, it would probably be a little bit difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. You have pretty good eyes on everybody. But anyhow, okay, we got off topic a little bit because this was just super juicy and I hope you guys are enjoying it thus far. But step 3 in changing your identity is, we've already talked about this a little bit. Spoiler, we spoiled it a little bit earlier, but is you gotta embody the new identity.
We totally spoiled this.
We did. But just to be a little more clear on what embody even means, I want you to think about like the best actors and actresses, right? And they're great, not because they just play pretend. Like you really believe they are the character, right? Like think of like Jim Carrey or Heath Ledger. That's another one we're going to talk about here in a second, but like they literally become the person.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy.
They're not just like imitating a character.
And some of them even do it when they're not doing it.
Right. And
That's
you're like,
crazy.
you're like, ooh, this is very Jim, this is which Jim Carrey are we getting?
Yeah.
So it's less of trying to imitate somebody and be like, ooh, I want to be like this fit girl.
Right.
Right. It's like you internalize the person, which is so weird. And I have done this multiple times in my life when I've been trying to when I was trying to become a pro, I was like, I would embody, like if I would think about my posing coach, which is Sid Gillen, the Olympia, like 20-time Olympia figure champ. I would be like, if I am her, what does she do? And how does she feel when she gets up? And how does she feel? And what is she thinking about when she poses? Right. I'm not just trying to like pretend I'm her by like what she wears and how she dresses and things like that. Right. So pretending comes from the outside in, right? The exterior type things, you talk like them, maybe things like that. And then embodying is more of, like I was saying, coming from the inside out and sort of harnessing that energy, that identity. You feel it in like your heart, your gut, your bones, right? So this is, again, like I was kind of saying earlier, I don't know, did you ever watch The Joker with Heath Ledger?
Yeah.
Okay. So now that is a negative energy embodiment. Okay. But nonetheless, a super powerful one because he literally was the Joker. Like, you think of any Joker, like he's the one that like stands out.
For sure.
Right. He didn't just play the character. He transformed. He like locked himself into a hotel room for weeks to study the Joker and, become that guy. That role. So this is why it's so important that when you want to switch your identity, that you really feel what that is, that identity is just gonna bring out in you. And you have to feel it before it's even really there, I feel like. So in your journey, particularly, and like in your specific journey from your lifestyle, from the fit lifestyle, right? Like, so you had Fifi to glitter.
Well,
you were glittery and Fifi.
I'm glitter forever,
whatever. But you were Fifi, and then you came into Coach Glitter time, and then you turned into competitor, right? So when you got into that, like when you, like you even said before we even started recording, you're like, I was not. I
told you for years I was never ever going to compete. For like 100 years, and then all of a sudden I was all, why am I wearing a sparkly bikini?
It didn't just happen like that, by the way, folks. So when you were in that transformation, how did you embody that competitor mindset or identity?
I mean, so
you did the habits, you did the things.
I did all the things. I did all the things. That is just like, you just got to do. But then when I'm like, even now, I still pose and I still do all of that. Like, I'm still trying to be that wellness girl. You have to think in your head, like, I am the girl that wants to get up there, that wants to win, that wants to get first. Is that always possible? No, but you have to think like, I want to be that girl. I want to be standing on stage. I want to feel them put the trophy around my neck, all of that.
Yes.
But that's like the glamour part of it, right? But for me, the challenge of doing all of the habits and doing all the things is also like glittery for me too, because it's a fucking challenge. And I'm like, I was just talking to somebody the other day. I know I'm getting totally off topic, but I was talking to somebody the other day and I was like, they were doing cardio. She's like, it just never is going to bring me joy. And I go, yeah, well, when you're competing and you're like, fuck yeah, every day, like you get on that Stairmaster and you're like, I'm going to beat you today. You're not beating me today.
That's what goes on in her head, folks.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
And it's an admirable,
that's what I was thinking.
It's an admirable thing to aspire to. But when I get on that thing, that is not what I'm thinking.
When I'm in contest prep, yes.
When I'm in contest prep, I'm like Tina. Okay. I love Insta Awesome, but she does not love the stair mill, but I'm very much like her.
I live on that thing. So I got to learn to love it.
Okay. So for myself, not that you asked, but I'm going to tell you. My favorite tool, which I talk about often, is I just act as if. And I learned that years ago. So when I decided basically anything I want to do, I'm like, okay, if I want to be A podcaster, I need to act as if. What do? They
Podcast.
take notes. They study, show topics. They look for guests that are going to be relevant to their podcast, right? So I'm like, I have to think, like, if I was a podcaster in health and fitness for women over 40, what would I do? And so you just have to do that. So when you are wanting to transform, like, let's say your body, you need to do what fit people do.
Yeah.
You need to eat how they eat. What do they listen to? Like, if you were a fit person, what kinds of things would you be listening to? Like, we listen to podcasts
talking about motivational speaking today as well.
Right. So we listen to things that fit people listen to.
You read things.
I read things.
You're so good at that. You read things. Yes.
Right. Where do fit people hang out?
The gym.
Where do they shop?
Oh,
Amazon. But also, like, what kinds of things do they wear? What kind of people are they hanging out with? Right? Like, you and I are not going to hang out with a bunch of like party animals, like Monday through Friday, that are doing that. Like, that's just not,
it's a rough life.
Yeah. So you have to think like that. Like, how do they speak? How do they think? Who do they associate with? Same thing for any goal that I set. I kind of get into this realm.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Okay. So if you are multitasking, come back around
and rewind. Rewind. It was juicy.
It was juicy. Okay. But we're going to dive into 5 tips to reinvent yourself. We're going to this is where the rubber meets the road. You got to start making shit happen, sister. Okay.
And this is how you do it.
Yes. This is how you do it. So tip number 1, you have to climb the ladder one rung at a time. So jumping too far, too fast is a recipe for disaster and likely quitting.
Right.
So
100%.
While we're telling you got to do all these things, you got to know what the next step of that is for you. And we'll explain that here in a second. Okay. When I was overweight, or like Amanda, when we were, I was over 200 pounds, she was 300. If we would have went straight from that condition of our life, which was on fire, okay, to then go, well, like, we wake up one day and I'm gonna be like, okay, well, I'm just going to identify as a competitor and I'm going to set myself up for that identity. Like, this is the work I'm doing and this is what I want to do, because we get that all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. How many times have we had clients come to the studio and they're motivated and they see other girls and they're like, I'm going to do that someday. And we're like, we admire that.
I would love you to do that.
Yes. But it's getting your hopes up way too soon for a goal like that. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have that, but it's like, we could not do that at 200 pounds or 300 pounds.
Right. Like, my biggest thing is, like, take it baby steps. Like, I knew, like, I needed to lose weight. Okay. I knew I wanted to learn to love lifting weights, because if you don't love lifting weights and you want to be a competitor, it's probably a bad idea.
Yes.
Let me just be real
on
that.
Right. So we had to identify with, being a person who exercises most days.
Yeah.
And it's part of their lifestyle.
Right.
That's what the first step was for us, right? Yeah. We just had to be like, okay, I'm overweight, I'm unhealthy, to transform and be somebody else. I'm just going to be a person who thinks of exercise like it's brushing your teeth. Like, you should be doing some kind of move.
And I had to pay somebody to get my ass there. So that's great.
Because you pay
attention.
You pay attention. Yeah. So I also had to identify as a healthy eater, right? That was something you had to do too. It couldn't be like, okay, I'm 200 pounds and I'm going to identify as a competitor, so let me eat chicken and asparagus for 6 meals, right? Like, so far removed. It just needs to be, I need to be a healthy eater. And that's like a solid identity transformation in and of itself.
Right.
So key point here is baby steps.
Yeah.
Like, little doable and something that's not going to feel inauthentic. Okay. And then that's how we slowly became those people. And then the next rung of that ladder did not feel so far away. So this is like when I do a physique assessment, right? And I do a physique assessment and basically assess anybody who's interested in whether or not they're ready to compete and what that will look like for a timeline.
Right. I mean, this also goes for lifestyle clients too.
Yes. But this is super important for this piece of it, because what happens is that we have girls that are like, okay, I want to compete at the end of this year. Right. Okay. So let's just say right now we're in February and somebody says, I want to compete in November, and I'm looking at their physique assessment. Now, if they're doing like 90% of the things that they would need to do, right? Like, they're already going to the gym, they're doing all the things. Okay. that is the next rung of the ladder for them.
Yeah.
All right. If they are not, like they're me and you back then.
Yes.
No, you should not be trying to do a show in November when it's February and you have never been in a weight room.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, you got to make sure you're not
identifying with something that's out of reach.
That's totally out of reach.
At least
right
for now.
You got to, it's like saying, I want to be a millionaire next month.
Can't we?
Yeah. Like next month, I want to make, $1 million or something. Right. Like if that's not true or even close.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to behave like that millionaire, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Right.
All right. So what do you think would have happened for you personally if you would have started your journey and you would have just been like, okay, you signed up with your coach at the time, Donnie, you're like, okay, I'm going to compete this year.
He would have told me I was tripping.
Yeah. And like, how would that have went for you? Like you would have probably got discouraged.
It would have. I would have.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, which is funny, not funny, is that in reality, I probably could have competed.
Yeah.
That first year too.
Probably because you lost 90 pounds.
90 pounds. Yeah. But no, if I would have been like, okay, hi, I'm 300 pounds. I want to be a competitor this year. I would have never have made it.
Yeah.
It would have been so much pressure.
That
it would have been not fun. And that's what I wanted. That's what I did is I learned to love the weights and I learned to love the gym before I decided to do anything else.
Yeah. So important. Laying that foundation down.
Yeah. So tip number 2, try your new identity in places where nobody knows you. Okay.
This is so fun.
Be a new you and go to a new place and be whoever the fuck you want to be.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have an example where you showed up as a new identity for a while?
Well, I think I do this. I feel like I still do this, right? Like we'll go to a new gym.
We are always doing this, right? We don't know anybody. We're just like, okay, we're just going to pretend.
Yes. Yeah. And we fake it till we make it, or we act as if, however you want to put it. But I mean, you can do this anywhere. Like you can be a new person at a new gym. Like when we started for the first time.
Yeah. You can go to a new,
no one's going to know,
coffee shop,
and act as if you're your new identity and be in your new identity.
A new class.
It really is. It's embodying that mindset and taking it with you, right? So no matter what situation you're in, you're that fit person. So let me give you some examples because this might feel very generalized. So let's say that you go to the post office and you're a fit person now.
Right.
What does a fit person do if they're at the post office? They're not doing pull-ups off random shit, but they probably park a little bit further away so they can get some more steps.
Yeah.
Maybe they have a water bottle in their car, so they make sure they always are hydrated from place to place.
You know what? When I go to a restaurant and I order food, this just happened the other day. She told me that they didn't have something on the menu. I can't remember what it was, but it was something healthy. And she goes, "I never tell anybody, but you look like you order healthy." And I was like, "Okay."
You're like, "Yeah, I don't want that shit." No. But yeah, it's that type of thing, right?
Yeah.
You're going to ask, if you're in a new restaurant, you're going to ask, do you have a fit menu or something like that? If you're in a new city and you're a fit person,
go to a gym.
What would you do? Gym. Take a class.
Go for a walk.
Yeah. Go for a walk. Maybe you ride a bike, just there's so many different opportunities to think like that person and just start creating the habits in your everyday life.
Yeah.
Right. So you just got to practice and eventually the confidence builds up and then you become that identity, right? We didn't become personal trainers and nutrition coaches in the identity of our old,
drafter,
beefy
drafter.
Yeah. So we didn't do that, but we didn't do that in our old mindset, in our old unhealthy mindset. We could not have even fathomed we would have been where we're at right now.
I still am not sure.
It's weird. It's weird. Yeah. All right. Tip number 3 is what to do when there is friction with family, friends, or significant others when you're trying to transform or reinvent yourself. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you identify as a people pleaser, it's harder.
Yeah.
So
if you are I'm a yes person,
yeah,
you're going to have a hard time.
it's way, way
Is
harder.
it going to be more harder? You can probably, you're going to
Yes.
definitely do it, but it's going to be more difficult.
So if you're used to just like, I can't because my dad gets mad, like that would have been me because my dad did not appreciate my lifestyle change and my identity switch when I became health and fitness.
Right.
My ex-husband did not appreciate it.
No.
And they really struggled with that. And it caused a lot of friction and a lot of tension. And they've had a really hard time with the new me. And it was more or less because my workouts were a priority on certain days. And like, if it didn't matter if it was a holiday, if I was competing, I had to do the thing, or if I was getting ready for a show, and you know this too, and we go to a family function and we're not cooperating with the menu, when we bring our own things, right? So it didn't actually, and like, I'm a people pleaser. I feel like I'm a recovered one.
Yeah.
But
you're also an introvert. So that hella helps.
It does hella help me. But it got me to a point where like, it actually made me want to do it more. And I hate to say that, but it like fueled my fire to be like, no, because I don't want to do what you're doing because it's not in alignment with how I want to live my life.
Correct.
So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing just to take a stand.
Yeah.
It's the best way to describe it.
No, I feel that.
Yeah. And we do see a lot of this, like when we get clients that join the transformation program, because their partners are like,
what the
hell? Who are you? Like, what's happening? Right. And so it's important, I think, if you have a partner, and like, we always have this discussion, I always tell every single client of mine, like, when you're going to compete, you need to have this conversation with your partner. I mean, same thing for a transformation program, or if you're trying to take on another identity,
right?
They need to know what they're in for, because your habits are going to change. And if you've cohabitated, you have a lot of similar corresponding habits.
It makes the difference, right?
One thing I'll add, and I know you have a story, similar story, but if they aren't on board, then, and this is a really hard thing to say, and also probably hear for some people that know within their gut, like, it might mean that relationship is no longer aligned if you're trying to live in your highest good. And I hate to be a dick, but like, my ex-husband's a great guy, and there was obviously a multitude of other issues there, but our lifestyles weren't in alignment with what he, felt as a priority at the time. And so I just knew, like, I can't live in my highest good unless you're going to support that. And if it causes friction, that's when it's a problem.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you see this all the time. I had a client in the studio the other day. She's a competitor. She's been fit. She's a fit girl, right? She worked out, did boot camp. Then she finally came to us to start training to lift weights. And then she became a competitor. So then, her complete life shifted. So it was like, she was taking her food everywhere. She never like skipped a beat. And she has like 3 kids that are doing all of these things. So her friends were like, what the heck, like, where are you at? Why can't you come? You can't drink? Why not? And not that her friends were like on her like that, but she told me a story yesterday about how a bunch of her friends, and I think her sister-in-law or her sister or something, are doing a 45-day boot camp.
Oh, of course. And now the rules have changed.
Now they are like, oh my gosh, this is like a full-time job. And it's like, yes, when you are going to go on to this transformation, you are going to be doing most likely completely different than what you were doing before.
And that's the hard part. If it's so far from what you've been doing, for sure.
If you fight it, even with the baby steps, you're going to have a hard time. So just embrace it and embody that new you.
Yes.
Tip number 4. Lean into big life changes as possible time for reinvention. Like I was just saying, this is your time. So have you ever had a big life change that sparked a reinvention?
Lots of them.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of them. So, I mean, for sure, I went from, back in the day, I was like, my old identity was broke teen single mom, on every form of government assistance, all that fun stuff. That was my old identity. Like, it took me a while to like shake that, right? Like, and still she creeps up and she's like, hey, bitch, but it was definitely something that once I got out of it, I looked back and I was like, I never want to go back there ever again.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
And so I'm like, I can't go back to that way of thinking. So I became almost, I hate to use the word obsessed. I want to be like passionate, but it was almost like obsessed with like learning all the things and reading all the things. And like, what do successful people read and how do they act and what do they like? It was that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I mean, whether I knew it or not, I was just like, this is what I need to do. Like, if these people are living a life that's like happy with their fitness and health and their, their finances, like it must work.
Right.
So I decided that I can continue that path, or it's just not working and I can be different. And that's scary. That's like really, really scary, for a lot of people. But it's like whether I realized or not, I was like, who do I want to be in this next chapter? Right. Like, what do I want to do? And I feel like I still do that. My daughter's always like, okay, mom, what are you up to now? Right.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's more or less
you
like,
just started a new training program.
Yeah. I was like thinking about this yesterday. I'm like, fuck my life. How much shit is like, have I done in the last like 2 months? Well, actually the last like 5 months, but it was like, I decided I'm an empty nester now. That's my new identity.
You have all kinds of new projects.
Like, what do empty nesters do? They run around the house naked. They buy whatever the hell they want to eat and their kids aren't going to eat it.
Yeah.
Right. Like they do things that they can't do when they have little humans or other humans in the house. So this is a new identity. So for sure. But I feel like a lot, and I don't know if you felt like this, but I've had a lot of like breakdowns or like periods in my life that are like sad. And then I fucking come back like as a new, just like it's a breakthrough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, how many breakups have you been a witness to in my life that I like then turned around and won a show? I then turned around and like won my pro card, like all these things. But it was like, I had to shed off like this old identity. Yeah. How about you?
I mean, losing 150 pounds is pretty radical, I believe. And it took me a long time to actually look in the mirror and see a girl that I thought looked fit.
Wow. That's deep too. Yeah.
Even back then, like, I mean, I went from 280 pounds down to 120-ish. And we also did that again. I didn't go back up to 280 pounds, but I did get down to 120-ish for that show. And, it was just hard to kind of shake that fat girl feeling. And then even as a competitor, it's even worse with the goggles just because you're trying to achieve this high goal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it just gets to a point where you're like, ugh, I don't know. Can I do this thing? Am I like biting off more than I can chew? Am I just like, are people laughing at me? Are they thinking I'm stupid for doing this thing? Like, these are all things that I thought every time I went to do a show, every single time, like, are they thinking, oh, she's not gonna be able to do it this time. Right. And I think it's just the voice of self-doubt and imposter syndrome creeping up. Like, who do you think you are trying to do this thing? But but honestly, I think using that as fuel and just kind of stuffing it down was huge.
Just
huge.
Go.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Yeah. So the last tip, we're rounding out this episode here. We've been going for some time now, but the last tip is that you have to be consistent. And this is the most challenging part for most people. You can't just turn it on when you're motivated if you want to change your life. It needs to be something that is a part of who you are.
Yeah.
Right. Like
you have to become that.
You have to embody
that.
Yeah. So it's going to take a very conscious, intentional effort. And this is especially in the beginning, because that's when it's new and
exciting.
Yeah. New and exciting and easy to just want to ditch it because it's foreign.
Yeah.
So you got to do that slow and methodical. Okay. So if you can change your identity first, and then your beliefs about yourself in tandem with that, you start to naturally shift your actions.
Yeah.
Okay. Your feelings, your behaviors, that all starts to change when you shift your identity first versus like the other way where we talked about like the habits. Right.
Right.
So that's the difference there. But when you don't have the evidence yet, you have to embody it. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so Amanda didn't get on the weights and then just the next day, right? She had the evidence that her workout worked, right? It took that time, but she stuck with the process. And if you can embody that consciously and consistently until the evidence is created, even though you just said a minute ago, like, I'd look in the mirror and still think, I was seeing a fat girl. Like, you're doing the things and then you have that pivotal moment where you're just like, oh, I guess I'm not that anymore. Right. So that's huge. And once you've made real changes in your reality, right? Like she no longer is that identity.
No.
It's going to reinforce everything you've been working towards. And then that's when you solidify it. So weird, but so true, because it's like, we've had this shift. So it's like a totally different person.
Do the things.
Do you ever think about that? I'm like, we were totally different people.
Yeah.
Like
all the time,
like
all the
so
time.
Weird, but it's amazing and it's awesome. And it's just like the power of your mind is insane. So anyhow, this was a great episode.
Wow.
I know we went a lot.
Y'all are still here. Like,
yeah.
Thank you. Y'all are the best.
You're the best, but you have to prove to yourself that you are who you say you are, right? Yeah. This is living in your integrity. This is embodying who you are. And once you do that, your little cycle of
you can't just think it. You got to do the things. You got to think the things, and you got to actually think you're that person.
Yeah.
And that's going to give you the fire. Everybody wants motivation, but it's consistency and you seeing yourself doing that.
And talking to yourself as if you are already that person.
Yeah.
Like I talk to myself all the time.
I know.
I'm like, bitch. I call myself bitch all the time. I'm like, bitch, what the fuck? Okay, get your shit together. Like, get your ass up. Like, I will literally, blah, 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 like, you're a fit girl. Knock that shit off.
Exactly.
Quit behaving like a dumb head.
Yes.
Right. So we still have our moments too. But anyhow, we love you. We're so glad you were here listening. We hope we've inspired you. And remember, this is a process. Like she said, it's not going to happen at once. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Don't forget, you guys, to get on the wait list for the Goddess Body Project. Waitlist enrollment goes in early April and program starts 4/15. So get on it.
Yes. And again, the Goddess Body Project is a great next step if you're like in that spot where you're needing to do something different and forge a new identity with habits that you know you want to set in place because you want to become that identity. You want to become that person. You want to be the fit mom. You want to be the fit grandma. You want to be the fit wife, whatever, healthy, whatever, strong, whatever word you want. If that's what you want, you got to take a next step. And then it just makes sense that you dive in with something that is going to cover all those areas, right? Like you're really going to dive into that. So anyhow, it's for you if you want to feel good in a swimsuit. It's for you if you want to feel strong and fit and have some energy and want to be able to pick shit out of your closet and without having to squat 80 times for your jeans to fit, right?
Oh, yeah, that's the one.
Yes. And get in the best shape of your life. So make sure to get on the wait list. You'll find the link somewhere in the description here or in the show notes. And we'll be releasing info for that soon. And of course, if you have any questions, you know where to find us.
Hi.
All right. Bye.
Bye.